Title: The Chilling Case of the Missing Husband, the Truth Hidden Behind a Perfect Marriage. The Disappearing Husband. If you're watching, you already know how this goes. The stories that stay with you aren't the loud ones. They're the quiet ones. The ones that unfold behind perfect family photos and polite smiles. If you want more true stories like this, stories that remind us that sometimes the real monsters live in our own homes, then subscribe, like, and leave a comment. It helps more than you know. Now, let's begin. The phone call came in just before midnight on September 28th. The tone in the caller's voice was steady, composed, almost too composed. "My husband is missing," she said. "He hasn't come home." Her name was Jennifer Gledhill, age 42. A mother of 3. PTA volunteer. Soft-spoken. The kind of woman who waved to neighbors and brought extra cupcakes to school functions. She lived in a quiet neighborhood in Cottonwood Heights, Utah, where houses sat behind manicured lawns and porch lights glowed warm and inviting in the evening. She didn't sound frantic. She didn't sound confused. She sounded calm. The responding officers noted that immediately. Her husband, Matthew Johnson, was well known in the community. A decorated member of the Utah National Guard Special Forces Group. A Green Beret. He was a man who had seen war, distance, separation, and things most civilians could never imagine. And yet, he was known among his peers as a steady presence. A man who kept his promises. A man who showed up. And now he was just gone. Jennifer invited the officers inside, apologizing for the late hour, her tone light, almost conversational. The kitchen counters were wiped clean. The living room was spotless. The master bedroom door, however, was closed. She told police that Matthew had left days earlier, saying he needed space. She said he'd mentioned taking a break, maybe a week away. She suggested he might have gone to clear his head. She implied stress, marriage struggles, emotional distance, the kind of cracks that appear quietly, then suddenly seem too wide to cross. But Matthew's military unit had already reported him missing before Jennifer ever picked up the phone. He hadn't shown up for duty. He hadn't responded to messages. And Matthew Johnson was not a man who missed commitments. That was the first red flag. The second came hidden in plain sight. While Jennifer spoke, an officer noticed something small but unusual, a faint smell of bleach. Not harsh. Not recent. The kind of scent that sinks into carpet fibers after someone has scrubbed thoroughly, intentionally. Jennifer explained it away easily. She said she had spent the afternoon cleaning. "When I'm stressed, I clean," she said with a small laugh. The kind of laugh people used to fill silence, not to express amusement. But the officer wrote it down anyway. Over the next 24 hours, the story began to shift. Slightly. Subtly. Just enough to raise eyebrows. Jennifer said Matthew had left on foot. Later she said he'd left in the truck. Later still she said she wasn't sure anymore. It was the kind of inconsistency that doesn't scream guilt, but whispers it. The real turning point came from someone who wasn't supposed to be part of the marriage at all. A man who, until recently, had been kept in the shadows. He was younger than Matthew. Charming. Interested. He listened when Jennifer talked. He admired her. He made her feel seen. At least, that's how she described him to friends. But feelings like that rarely stay quiet. Someone saw them together. Someone noticed the way her eyes lingered. Someone heard laughter that didn't sound like friendship. And then one night, he received a message from Jennifer that chilled him. It wasn't panicked. It wasn't emotional. It was confessional. The kind of message that changes everything. He didn't respond right away. He stared at his phone and felt his heartbeat climb. This wasn't the woman he thought he knew. And he wasn't the only one. Because while neighbors whispered and friends exchanged uneasy glances, Matthew's closest confidants, his fellow soldiers, had known something was wrong for weeks. He had stopped sleeping at home. He had told them he didn't feel safe. Those words, spoken by a man trained to survive combat, echoed louder than any alarm. But what no one knew, not his friends, not his command, not even the curious neighbors who noticed lights on at strange hours, was that something had already happened inside that house. Something irreversible. Investigators would later learn about the new mattress, the discarded bedding, the sudden redecorating. The nights Jennifer spent awake, moving room to room as though trying to erase the past with a washcloth and scented candles. But all of that would come later. For now, there was just a missing husband, a wife with a story that didn't quite settle right, and a house that smelled faintly of bleach. What investigators didn't yet know, what they couldn't have known, was that the truth was already out there. Recorded. Saved. Waiting. Because somewhere in Cottonwood Heights, a man was replaying a phone recording. listening to a voice he thought he trusted, hearing a confession he could never unhear. And what she said was about to turn this case from a missing person into something far darker. The recording that changed everything. If you've made it this far, don't scroll. This is the moment the entire story shifts. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. It helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. Now, let's go back. The recording didn't come from a police interview. It didn't come from a confession booth. It didn't come from an interrogation. It came from something much more common, much more human. It came from a late-night phone call. The man on the other end was Evan, the person Jennifer had been seeing quietly enough to stay invisible to the outside world, but not quiet enough to stay invisible forever. The relationship had started as harmless conversation. Two people talking. Two people sharing frustrations. Two people feeling understood. Then the conversations turned into messages. The messages into jokes. The jokes into secrets. And the secrets into something that crossed a line neither of them could claim to have accidentally stepped over. They had been careful, at first. But careful doesn't last when emotion takes over. On the night the recording was made, Evan wasn't calling to flirt. He wasn't calling to make plans. He wasn't calling to talk about feelings. He was calling because something had changed. Jennifer had been distant, unreachable, strange. He'd gotten short, clipped responses. No emojis, no warmth. He felt something in his chest he couldn't explain. Not fear, anxiety. A feeling that something was coming, something he couldn't see yet somehow recognized. So he called her. And the voice that answered didn't sound like the Jennifer he knew. It sounded exhausted, flat, emotionless. Evan asked where Matthew was. The question was casual, but the silence that followed wasn't. When Jennifer finally answered, her voice was barely above a whisper. He's not coming back. Evan didn't understand. What do you mean? Another silence. Then, I reached my limit. I couldn't do it anymore. She didn't say anything explicit. She didn't describe anything. She didn't use the words investigators later would. But what she did say was enough. Enough to change the tone of his breathing. Enough to make his stomach drop into his shoes. Enough to make him quietly press record on his phone, instinctively before his mind even caught up. The recording was just 9 minutes long. 9 minutes that shifted the fate of an entire investigation. In those 9 minutes she didn't confess a crime. But she confessed something else. She confessed intention. She confessed thought. She confessed absence of regret. The most chilling part wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. No shaking. No panic. No stumbling. Just a quiet, steady resignation. Like someone who had accepted the ending of a chapter she'd already rewritten in her mind. The next morning, Evan didn't go to work. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He didn't know what to do. But he knew he had to do something. He drove to the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. He didn't call ahead. He didn't ask for advice. He walked straight to the front desk and said, "I need to speak to a detective. I have information about the missing man." Within 10 minutes, he was sitting in a small, windowless room, a stainless steel table between him and two investigators who were trying very hard to appear calm. He didn't look guilty. He didn't look frightened. He looked devastated. He slid his phone across the table. He said softly, "You need to hear this." And once the recording played, the entire investigation changed direction. The missing person case became a possible criminal investigation. But there was still one problem. There was no physical evidence. No scene. No location. No remains. Nothing to prove anything concrete. Just a voice. A tone. A suggestion hidden inside words. But the greatest evidence wasn't in what Jennifer said that night. It was in something else entirely. Something small. Something easy to overlook. Something the officers at the house earlier had noticed, but didn't understand yet. The closed master bedroom door. Behind it was the truth. Not the whole truth. Not the final truth. But the truth that would lead investigators to everything else. They just didn't know it yet. Because when detectives returned to the house, this time with a search order, the door wouldn't open. Jennifer refused to unlock it. And when they finally went inside, what they found didn't answer the case. It deepened it. And it raised the question that would haunt this investigation forever. What happened inside that room? The room that spoke without words. If this story has you locked in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, "I'm still here," so the algorithm knows to show you chapter 4 when it drops. Now back to the house. When investigators returned, it wasn't casual anymore. No polite conversation. No half questions meant to keep the peace. This time there was a search warrant. Jennifer stood in the doorway as officers stepped past her. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply watched. Her expression was calm. Too calm. People grieve differently. Everyone knows that. But calm can mean two things: acceptance or control. And detectives needed to know which one they were dealing with. They moved through the house slowly, room by room. The living room was spotless. The kitchen counters gleamed. Laundry folded. Children's toys sorted into bins by size and color. Not the home of someone overwhelmed by chaos. The home of someone who had planned for visitors. But the house wasn't the focus. It was the master bedroom. The room Jennifer had refused to let anyone enter days earlier. She stood in the hallway as detectives approached it, hands loosely clasped in front of her. Not blocking the path. Not helping either. Just watching. One of the detectives inserted the key. The door clicked. The hinges groaned softly as it swung open, and the room revealed itself. There was nothing dramatic. No overturned furniture. No mess. No chaos. In fact, the room looked new. Too new. The furniture was different from what neighbors remembered. The bedding was new. No photos. No personal items on nightstands. No clutter. No trace of shared life. Just a bedroom staged like a model home in a furniture catalog. Except for one detail. The carpet. The color was off just slightly. A shade lighter in certain areas. Faint, uneven patterns. As though something had been scrubbed. Repeatedly. Purposefully. And then replaced. One of the detectives knelt, pressing his fingertips into the fibers. No. Fresh. Recently installed. Carpet replacement is not unusual. But timing is everything. Detectives checked the trash bins behind the house. Nothing. But the neighbors? They remembered something. A roll of carpet padding sitting by the curb earlier that week. A truck hauling away heavy bags. Jennifer waving politely. The kind of small-town details that mean nothing, until they mean everything. Inside the bedroom closet, investigators found something else. Not dramatic. Not incriminating on its own. Just absence. Matthew's clothes were gone. All of them. Not stored. Not boxed. Gone. Jennifer claimed she donated them. She said she was moving forward. But grief doesn't usually remove every belonging in one sweep. It lingers. It hesitates. It holds on. This was not holding on. This was erasing. On the dresser, detectives found a journal. Not Matthew's. Jennifer's. They did not read it immediately. They logged it as evidence. Sealed it. Stored it. Later, when investigators reviewed it, they'd find entries documenting growing resentment, emotional distance, loneliness, anger, and a final, striking sentence, written weeks before Matthew disappeared. Sometimes I think the only way out is if he's not here anymore. Not a confession. Not proof. But intention. Emotion. Context. And context is often the shadow behind truth. The breakthrough didn't come from the bedroom, or the carpet, or the journal. It came from the truck key found in the back of a kitchen drawer. A key that should not have been in the house. Because according to Jennifer, Matthew had taken the truck when he left, but the key was here, inside the home. Meaning the truck never left the property that night. Meaning Matthew never drove away. Meaning the story was breaking. The narrative she had held onto was no longer holding together. Detectives didn't accuse her. They didn't push her. They didn't try to corner her. They simply asked one quiet question. Jennifer, can you tell us again what happened that night? And for the first time, she didn't have an answer ready. She blinked. She swallowed. She looked down. She said, I think I need a lawyer. The investigation shifted from searching for a missing man to uncovering where he went. And most importantly, who helped move the truth. Because Jennifer didn't do this alone. Someone else was involved. Someone with access. Someone with motive. Someone who believed loyalty was love. And the investigators already knew exactly who he was. The same man who had walked into the police station with a recording was now about to become more than just a witness. He had been there that night. And what he was about to reveal would change everything. What broke the silence? If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and comment, still watching, so this story reaches someone who needs to hear it. Now, let's finish this. The man who walked into the police station that afternoon looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. His hands shook as he handed over his phone. His voice trembled when he explained why he was there. And when detectives asked how long he'd been carrying the truth, he closed his eyes, exhaled, and said, Since the night she told me everything. He was Jennifer's lover. Not a stranger. Not an outsider. A man caught up in something he never expected to be part of. He didn't yell. He didn't defend her. He didn't accuse her either. He simply repeated her words, softly, broken, like someone trying to unsay them by speaking them out loud. And when detectives started playing the recording, the room changed. There were no shouts, no threats, no dramatic confession, just Jennifer's voice, cold, controlled, smooth, as though she had rehearsed this story in her mind for weeks before saying it. She spoke about arguments, about how she felt trapped, about how she believed Matthew had ruined her life, not with violence, but with the quiet, persistent erosion of a marriage that had died long before either of them admitted it. To Jennifer, the separation represented freedom. To Matthew, it represented rebuilding. Two people living in the same house wanting two different futures. And only one was willing to wait for the legal process to play out. Detectives brought Jennifer back in for questioning. This time she didn't try to control the room. She knew. They knew. The story had changed. No more disappearance. No more miscommunication. No more waiting for him to come home. Still, she didn't confess. Instead, she stared at the table and said, "Everyone thinks they understand a marriage from the outside. They don't." Detectives didn't push her. They didn't need to. Because while the investigation continued inside the home, another team was working outside, following GPS data pulled from her phone. Not to a house. Not to a storage unit. Not to someone else. But to a stretch of empty land north of the city. Quiet roads. No cameras. Sparse homes. A place where someone could make something disappear. Search teams combed the area for days. Volunteers joined. Military friends searched on foot, ATVs, and horses. But they found nothing. The land had shifted. Weather had changed. Time had passed. The grave, if it existed, was hidden by the world itself. And that meant something crucial. The strongest evidence in this case was no longer physical. It was psychological. It was relational. It was intent. In the courtroom months later, the trial drew full attendance. Friends, family, neighbors, people who had once called Jennifer generous, warm, kind. People who could no longer reconcile the woman they knew with the decisions she made. The prosecution presented text messages showing escalating resentment, the mattress replacement receipt, the truck key that contradicted her statement, the journal entries revealing motive, and the recorded call, the one where she spoke of Matthew in the past tense. And then the lover testified. His voice cracked only once. When the prosecutor asked, "Why did you come forward?" He didn't say guilt. He didn't say fear. He didn't say pressure. He said, "Because his children deserve the truth." The courtroom went silent. Because in everything that had been said, motive, planning, timing, this was what mattered most. 3 children were left holding questions no one could ever fully answer. They had lost the father who read to them. The father who waited in the school pickup line. The father who reminded them to wear jackets when it got cold. And they lost the mother who once braided their hair, packed their lunches, and kissed their foreheads goodnight. Not because of one moment, but because of 1,000 small choices. 1,000 quiet resentments. 1,000 unsaid words. Until something irreversible happened. And everything broke. The jury deliberated for less than a day. Jennifer was found guilty of first-degree murder and obstruction of justice. She will spend decades in prison. Her parents will serve time for their role in covering up evidence. And Matthew's body still has not been found. But the search continues. Not because of legal closure, but because closure of the heart is different. It is hope. The hope that one day his children will know where he rests, so they can say goodbye. Not to the man in the headlines, but to the father they loved. And if you're still here, remember this. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't about strangers lurking in the dark. They're about the person sitting across the dinner table. The truth is rarely loud. It whispers. It erodes. It waits. And by the time you notice, it's already changed everything. This story held you. If you felt this, then do not scroll away. Subscribe. Because the next case is even more unbelievable. And you're not going to want to miss it.